So on this week's episode of Be More Super, we've got a real treat. Any DC fans out there, we have got the Flash himself. Yes, Mr. John Wesley Shipp. John, welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And how is everything where you are in, is it New York you're based?
New York City. Yes, I am. It's a very gray New York day today. Of course, you know, the numbers for COVID-19 are going back up. So restrictions are starting to be reapplied, and everyone's very concerned about that. You know, so far the gyms are still open, which I'm happy about because I gained 30 pounds during the first quarantine. Of course, everything's very safe. They put in a special filtration and antivirus air system. Everybody has to wear their mask the correct way, can't be hanging from your chin, you know, has to be the way it is. And they've got cleaning stations all over the gym to totally disinfect before and after every exercise that you use. So I feel fairly comfortable in doing that. And I'm slowly chipping down because I got the word that I may be needing to be thinner. We'll just say that. I don't want to give anything away after the first of the year. So I can't have this COVID quarantine weight on.
That is awesome news that there could be potential excitement there for fans. But I'm glad you're keeping safe because that's the key, isn't it? It's about looking after yourself, respecting others, and you know, being positive. We will get through this. I think everyone, no matter what country you're in, are going through the same thing. You know, it is difficult times, especially with kids involved as well. I've got to keep my little girls all safe. I've got to be the superhero in my house.
Oh yeah, how old?
I've got a 7-year-old little girl called Lois, after Lois Lane.
Yeah.
And I've got a 3-year-old little girl called Cara, after Supergirl.
Excellent.
And do you know what? My wife let me. You know, I've got such an understanding wife. I really have. But let's talk about superheroes because you, John, paved my childhood. You and Christopher Reeve, because while growing up, I was obsessed with Superman, and then on the TV came the Flash. And it just opened my eyes. It was full of magic, CGI, you know, great costumes. But how did you get the role of the Flash? Because you were primarily daytime TV.
I was up to the and Broadway. I've been on Broadway and done regional theater, and I have my 2 daytime Emmys, and I got cast in Neverending Story 2 with Jonathan Brandis. And I went and did that. And the casting director of that movie, the late Hank McCann, who was super agent extraordinaire in the player, Robert Altman's The Player. At one point, someone says, "Get McCann." You know, he was an iconic casting director who did a little bit of personal management. And so he wanted to personally manage me after that experience and said, "You have to come to LA." So I came, I did a couple of projects, and I began to hear about this script based on a superhero called The Flash. And I was very cautious about it in 1990 because I had pretensions of being a serious actor. And I didn't think that spoof comedy, which was the way I had grown up with superheroes on TV and loved every minute of it. But I just didn't think that's where my talent or my interests lay. So I talked to April Webster, multiple Emmy award-winning casting director of Lost and other shows. And I said, you know, I'm uncomfortable with the potential spoof element, and I would be very nervous about running around in a pair of red tights. And she said, well, first of all, the reason we're coming to you is because we know that your training and the work that you've done, you try to be as truthful as possible. She said, and if the project were what you are describing, do you think I would be attached? And I went, okay. So she said, just read it. That's all I ask. And I read Danny Bilson and Paul DeMeo's extraordinary pilot, hour-and-a-half pilot treatment, in which I discovered a young man who was the unblessed son of a cop family where real cops work the streets, but I go to the crime lab so that my mom isn't nervous every night, you know, about her every man in her family not coming home. Dad doesn't really respect that. You know, mom will say, be safe. And Emmett Walsh would chime in, the great Emmett Walsh, talk about iconic. He would chime in, what's he going to do? Stub his toe in a footprint? Of course, I was thinking now, I was CSI before CSI was cool, Dad, you know? And so, you know, and then suddenly this guy gets these powers. And I was really interested by the fact that it wasn't Hugh Hollywood Hero, that his first reaction wasn't, okay, I'm going to go off now and save the day. You know, it was, I want to get rid of this. I'll go see Tina McGee. I don't want to know from this. I've accepted my lot in life. I am comfortable with who I am and my position in the family. I love my brother, who is the blessed son, played by Tim Thomerson. I thought, well, that's interesting. And then I noticed that all the way through, even though there was humor, the humor was based on things like, what would potential speed do to your love life? I mean, it was the human reality behind an extraordinary superhuman event. And they were constantly trying to get to something that felt authentic. And I thought, okay. Then Danny said, we promise we won't put you in a set of red tights. You know, Oscar winner, you know, George Stevens, Robert Short will be building it. And it will be a high-tech construction. We're spending $100,000 in 1990 to build 4 suits. I began to long for those red tights later on in the shooting schedule as it got hotter and hotter and hotter. But anyway, and so I read for it. You know, I think I had heard at the time about 60 other guys. They took 2 of us to the network, CBS, and network tests will shorten your life. You know, you walk in, and there are 22 studio executives. And April was there reading with me, and we read. Then they called me back in again, gave me a direction, and I read again. And then we went away. And then they asked to see some film from an independent film project, The Sector, that I was doing at the time, to see recent footage, because I had worked with Greg Berlanti on Dawson's Creek. You know, they clearly wanted to see some recent footage. And then after they got that, they called my agent and they made the offer. Now, when I heard how Jeff Johns had altered The Flash, I thought, if they come to me, Henry Allen is the character I want. Everyone was saying G. Garrick, G. Garrick, G. Garrick. I was going, it's a little on the nose. But to be this father who is wrongfully convicted of killing his wife in front of his 10-year-old son, and only his son believes in his innocence, I thought that's a role I would want to play, even if I had never been Barry Allen. I thought that, and it proved true, that having been Barry Allen helped me be a better father figure to the new Barry Allen. And we got to pass the blessing, father-son blessing, instead of, hey kid, go out there, this is how you do it, this is how you be a superhero. So that's how it actually came about in 1990.
Yeah. I mean, did any of your friends, you know, when you said, oh, I'm going to go for The Flash, did any of them try to talk you out of it or into it? I mean, I've got to imagine as an actor, you know, signing up for such a big job like The Flash, it could be a make or break situation, you know, if it succeeds or fails.
Well, I think the degree of confidence that my by then manager, Hank McCann, had in me and my ability, and he had obviously grilled everyone about what kind of production it was going to be. The most expensive show Warner Brothers had ever produced for television. Okay, it's not going to be, we're going to stand off screen with a rope and for Spider-Man and throw rope on camera. You know what I mean? It's going to be, for the time, groundbreaking visual and effects and stunts, because a lot of our effects were live action. We didn't have the capability of CGI that they have today. I always tell people, yeah, okay, you're a fan of the new Flash. If they say, I'm going to go back and watch the 90s show, I said, do me a favor, watch it through 1990s glasses, because it's important to remember that in 1990s, our reviews were phenomenal in big papers like the New York Times, the Washington Post. I mean, it was, I have on my Facebook page, my cover photo is now a collection of blurbs, reviews, all the major papers in the United States. Thirsty Nuts just got tougher, a 9.5 on the Zowie Wowie scale. I mean, our reviews were through the roof. So I think the confidence of my manager, his finger on the pulse of the entertainment industry, realizing what a blockbuster Batman had just been. Both of these projects were in development at Warner Brothers around a new way of telling these stories for adult audiences at the same time. So I think he knew it was going to be obviously a very high profile project, an action adventure show with the element of superhuman speed. Danny Bilson said, you'll only be in the suit maybe a quarter of the episode, but your job will be to bring, and I discovered this, was to bring truth to Barry Allen so that people, the audience, could identify with this ordinary guy caught in extraordinary circumstances, so that they could hook into Barry, so that when I went in the suit, everybody came with me, because everybody can relate. I'm an ordinary guy, and everybody has a special ability. Everybody has a thing that they do particularly well. How do you deal with that? And the bigger the ability, the more the strain on the individual. So by the time it came around to my auditioning for it, I was 100% invested. I was all in. And what was still cautious.
Yeah.
I was still uncomfortable, and you could see it in those early episodes. I didn't want to talk in the suit. I didn't want to be a mascot. I didn't want Entertainment Tonight coming in and getting B-roll of me drinking a Diet Coke and eating a ham sandwich with the cow back. I didn't want to be a mascot, you know.
Yeah.
It was a big concern for me then.
I mean, what was the pressure like, knowing that you were going to be playing a superhero, you know, to deliver that?
I never felt, I came at it from exactly the opposite. First of all, admission, full disclosure, I was not a comic book fan growing up. They said The Flash. I said, do you mean Flash Gordon? Sorry, guys. I had to learn, and I had what great mentors, Danny Bilson and Paul DeMeo, to school me in the history. I mean, The Flash was 50 years old when I got to him in 1990. You know, so this amazing, through Jay Garrick, through Barry Allen, through that I had to learn, and then I had to forget about it. And I had to look at the page. I had to look at the human, very human guy that Danny and Paul had written. And I had to invest that with as much of John as I could find in the role. I always felt once the suit came out and the lights went down and Danny Elfman and Shirley Walker swelled, you know, the music, my job was essentially over. You know, I had a wonderful stuntman, Dane Farwell, who I always credit to this day. He was a rock, and he was so talented. You know, if he was either photo doubling me, like in the Blue Flash, Red Flash, Twin Streaks episode, whatever he was doing, he was so expert and so devoted and so committed to it. He made it a lot easier.
That's awesome. And talking about the suit, of course, that suit is iconic. It really, really is. And during pre-production, I assume there were many suits that you maybe tried on. I mean, what was that process like, you know, getting fitted and seeing the suit for the first time?
They knew what they wanted. I think I've heard Danny Bilson say, or read that he said, I never knew this, that the studio basically wanted you know, a running suit and sneakers with wings or something like that. They had to have George Stevens come in, and who I believe had just designed the Rocketeer, you know, suit, to come in and draw the version of what they visually wanted to see in a high-tech suit. That sold the network. And then the fitting process was wild, because I had to go in initially and strip to my underwear. They covered me in Vaseline, wrapped me in cellophane. I was like, okay, this is getting a little kinky. And then they put a spandex suit over that. And this is after they had done a body cast and a head cast and sculpted individual foam latex muscle pieces. They glued the individual muscle pieces onto the spandex suit over this, my greased up cellophane wrapped body. The reason they put grease on became evident because the glue got really hot when it set. So they glued all these individual muscle pieces on with me in it. They took it off. They took it, they flocked it. They put an electromagnetic charge through the suit while blowing this fabric, which gave it the fuzzy kind of look. And then they carefully shaded all the muscle areas. And, when they were doing the head thing for the cowl, I mean, it was old school. They could do it so much easier now, but they put all this plaster of Paris and they put straws in my nose so I could breathe, but it kept getting darker and darker and darker. And then I hear, ring, ring,
Wow.
They had a saw and they're like, begin to saw it after it had set. I'm like, oh my God, please don't slip. And they broke it off, and then they had my face and they could make the cowl. But no, it never, the only thing that we did after it was built, the first time it was really large, and you can see in some of the early photos, the traps it was really too big. And we went through a process of scaling down, which continued into the CW show, because that version of the suit is even a little slimmer to reflect
it's a lot more refined, isn't it?
You know what I mean? Yeah. But by the time we got to the Blue Flash, I felt that it was about where it needed to be.
And what was the best thing and worst thing about being in that suit?
Well, the best thing was the reaction of people who saw it, hearing the words, man, it looks like it was ripped right off of the comic book page. The fact that it was respected, it wasn't laughable. It was a high-tech construction built by an Oscar winner. So it's a lot of respect. In fact, our show was nominated for an Emmy for art direction. I'll always be proud of that, The best thing was that, and it continues to roll out. People still saying how much they love that version of the Flash suit to this day. So 31 years later, I'm very, very proud of it. Probably more than and less anxious than I was then. The worst thing was there were two challenges. And I always say, nobody wants to hear somebody who's been fortunate enough to play these iconic characters in today's market, where comic book entertainment is mainstream, right? It's like the biggest stars in the business are wanting to get these roles. That wasn't the case in 1990, but nobody wants to hear us whine about how hard our suit was. You know what I mean? The challenges were heat. I started sweating through the 2 or 3 inches at places, foam latex muscle, and you would see the sweat come out on the muscle bands and start to run down my body. I thought it was cool as hell. They said, nah, that has nothing to do with comic. So they sprayed it with a sealant, which kept all the sweat inside and all the heat inside. So I'd have it on for 20 minutes and you squeeze me out like a sponge, Plus they had to glue that cowl to my face and under my chin. So they put this glue on, then they take it off with acetone, then they put on makeup for Barry, then they take the makeup off, then they put the glue on. And the other challenge was they couldn't clean them, really, because the foam latex started crumbling from the 3rd episode in. It was constant repair. So they would hang it in my trailer and spray it with Lysol. It would still be wet and sticky.
Oh, dear.
The next time I put it on. So those were the challenges. Having said that, I would take that any day over running around in a pair of red tights,
And what an awesome suit it is. I mean, at what point of filming The Flash did you ever at any point go, wow, this is going to be fantastic, during filming The Flash?
There again, I was so micro-focused instead of macro. I was so focused on Barry and trying to get Barry right and trying to strike that balance between heightened reality and absolute truthfulness, because it can't be either one exclusively, right?
Yeah.
You got to find that line so it's not laughable, but it's still fun. It's still a comic book character. That I was so focused on that it really took other people to tell me. I had a friend come to the set, and we had a third of the back lot at Warner Brothers. The Warner Brothers had just been renamed. It was Burbank Studios. It was Warner Brothers and then Burbank, and then they had just renamed it, painted the water tower. I came over Barham and I saw that Warner Brothers Studios on the water tower. I knew I had a parking space on that back lot. That was phenomenal. Felt like the same first time I did Broadway, when I was in a restaurant on the Upper West Side having breakfast, thinking, I'm going to do my matinee on Broadway. You know, you get these things that wash over you, and you feel like you have to pinch yourself to see if you really, or punch yourself or something to see if you're really awake. I think I've gone way off of your question.
Right.
What was your initial question?
Was at what point did you feel, wow, this is going to be amazing?
Thank you.
This is the Flash.
A friend of mine came to the set, and he knew that I was doing it and was like, yeah, that's really great. He had been in the business, and he came to the set and observed, and he went, wow. I said, wow, what? He said, this is an enormous production. And he asked me that, how does it feel to be at the center of the biggest thing happening on the back lot at Warner Brothers at this moment? And I'm like, well, if you put it that way, it's a little nerve-wracking, but I can't think about that. But no, you did have the feeling that what you were doing was groundbreaking, and that you were at the beginning of something new, which I have landed in at several different daytime, the Youth Revolution, a new way of telling stories for young people on Dawson's Creek. So you had the feeling that that we were doing good work. We knew that we were doing good work, and that the special effects for the time would blow everyone away, as they did when we had a big premiere on the back lot at Warner Brothers, big screen, international press, huge setup with a dais and a backdrop, and I answered questions to the internet. I mean, it was a big deal, and it began to, I'm getting goosebumps putting myself back in that place. It began to dawn on me,
yeah,
this is the big time,
and throughout the series, you work with so many outstanding actors, from Mark Hamill to Amanda Pay, David Cassidy. Is there any actor that comes to mind that you had really good fun acting opposite?
Jason Bernard, the great late Jason Bernard. I certainly had fun with all of them. Mark Hamill, please. I mean, he helped me a lot, actually. He come blazing onto the back lot, working the unitard, no holes barred, no total 100% commitment. And that helped me sort of reevaluate my own ego that was perhaps a little misplaced at the time around a certain part of me was resisting. I would not be comfortable saying dialogue. I look at Grant today, who wears that suit like a second skin and says dialogue. He's completely natural. It amazes me, because 24 years later, when the CW Flash premiered, there's no stigma attached, as I was saying earlier.
So let's flash forward, should I say, to 24 years. Right. And we see you as Henry Allen. Were you hesitant to join the franchise, or did you grab hold of that and gone, yeah, come on, let's have it?
As soon as I found out, had they offered me the role out of the gate of Jay Garrick, I might have been hesitant. Because, I mean, come on, we got a bunch now. Barry is 10 years younger than he was when I was doing them, playing him. So we have these beautiful 20-somethings running around in superhero costumes. Here I come, at the time, I guess it was 27 years later when I put on the Jay Garrick suit. I'm going to get in it's like, I would have been a little weirded out. But as I say, when I heard how Geoff Johns had blown up the Allen family and how dark the new telling of that story was, I figured a couple of things. One, that my experience playing Barry would help me to play the part. Number two, I saw Grant Gustin in the backdoor pilot on Arrow when there was no acting. It's total sincerity. There were no gimmicks. It was just truth. And I knew I could work with that. And coming in to play this darker character, and I figured that since he's the only one that believed I was innocent, it would carve out a very unique place within an action adventure episode. Again, the lights go down, the music fades, everything gets quiet. We walk into that booth and pick up those phones and look at each other and tell the truth. I figured it would give us, it would carve out for us a very unique, quiet situation in which to, as the audience calls it, pass the torch. And the fact that scene after scene after scene, I so respect and admire and love Grant's work and his approach to the work. And not only his approach to the work, but his approach to being number one on the call sheet. Because, you know, when you are, it's a dual responsibility. You have to play your character, but then you set the tone for the set. There are some number ones on the call sheets that make it really abominable place to work. Grant's not like that. He kids around, he has fun, he laughs, he dances, and then when it's time to work, boom, he's giving himself 100% to it. So I have to say that it was, and you don't often say this, but playing Henry Allen was everything that I hoped it would be. You know,
I mean, the connection with you and Grant is just so heartfelt. It really is in like every scene. And I've always wondered that if you had any input on playing Henry, Allen, when you joined the cast, did you have any input, or were you told exactly how to play the character?
No, they wrote the scenes, and it's funny when we were at the upfronts in New York City after we had done it, and Grant had seen the pilot, and I hadn't. And he came bounding up to me and he said, "Man, have you seen our scene?" He said he was sitting there like going, "You can't cry. It's so not cool to cry at your own scene. It's so not cool to cry at your own scene." But it was, what was your question?
I know it was like base. You know what? I'm listening to you so attentively. Literally, I'm getting lost because I'm getting lost in
I'm
what you're saying.
these rabbits, you know?
So no, on screen, the relationship you have with Grant. Did you have any input on the way that you played Henry Allen?
They, as I was saying before I went chasing rabbits, the scenes were so beautifully written. And I think by the time they cast me, they knew why they cast me. So I didn't have to jump out and go way over here to play Henry Allen. Henry Allen was so much a part of my having been Jay Garrick, my respect and love for Grant. It was so much a part, and I figured rightfully, thank God, because I don't always figure rightfully, that my job was twofold. One was for Henry to make Barry feel that he was okay, and to show Barry everything that he saw in him that would make him a fine man, and to go and live your life, And then there was John looking at this amazing young actor, imagining what some of his hopes and dreams, what some of his insecurities might be going into such an iconic role. And to hold a mirror up to Grant, for him to see all the things that I saw in him, that I knew would make him a brilliant Flash for today. And you know what? Yes, you're an actor, and even if you're not getting along, your obligation is to play what's written and what's on the page. But it so helps when you genuinely have respect and love for each other to play scenes like that.
Definitely.
And we got incredibly close, which made it difficult. Maybe we'll talk this later when it came time to play Jay Garrick.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, did you realize that when you joined the show that you were going to end up playing Jay and then the Flash from Earth 90 and all that lot? I mean, how did you feel when you found those things out? That must have been crazy.
It was the quintessential bait and switch. I figured, I've answered this question so many times. So if people are watching, they've heard this answer. I tell people there are only so many answers that I can give before I start lying. so bear with me. It's like, I figured I'd get 1 or 2 seasons out of Henry Allen. Once he began assuming his powers, as parents need their children less, Barry would need me, Grant would need John. As I brought my audience onto the show, as he assumed so I figured one season, really. Okay, it stretched to 2, great. As I knew that I was booked for the last 4 episodes of season 2, and I figured, okay, this is where we'll say goodbye to Henry. And I found out quite by accident through someone saying offhand, okay, you got to have a fitting for the Iron Mask. And I said, the Iron what? The what? And they said, oh my God, you don't know? We didn't tell you. And then I'm sitting with Jesse Martin and Grant off camera in between scenes. And they're like, so did you hear what you're going to be doing next season? And I said, yeah, I'm the man in the Iron Mask. Go figure. They're like waiting. And they go, yeah, that's all you know? And I'm like, what else is there? And they said, you're the real Jay Garrick. I was like, stop. You're kidding. Well, of course, I called Greg and I said, I'm hearing rumors about, or I texted him about parts I may or may not be playing going forward. He was like, oh my God, I thought they had talked to you about it. He said, can we have a conversation tomorrow, which was Saturday? I said, absolutely. And then Greg spun out this amazing story in which I would be killed as one character in the penultimate episode. I would be resurrected and revealed as the man in the Iron Mask, who is a doppelganger of Henry Allen, who turns out to be the real Jay Garrick, which is the character the audience wanted me to play to begin with. And I said to Greg, I said, man, how can I say no to that? That's just, even if I were not involved and you laid this plan out to me, I would be giving you major props for just amazing channeling of fan expectation. And then came the process of suddenly it mattered how I looked. And we had to, with Maya, we had to, another Oscar winner, Colleen Atwood, designed suits. We had to go about building the Jay Garrick suit.
And it's an awesome suit. And it's awesome. I mean,
it can be cleaned.
Yeah, it can be cleaned. Did you get a chance to keep anything from the shows? Because I know that a certain overcoat, trench coat, or raincoat, I don't know what you call them in the States, makes an appearance from the OG Flash, as they call it, which is awesome, which I think is fantastic. I mean, is that the only piece that you own, or?
You know, I've been so foolish. I wish I had been more like Mark Hamill. Yeah, I think he has an entire wing of his house or something with memorabilia, which I think is really smart. I go back and I think the roles I've done on Broadway, the parts I've played, the different psycho parts and good guys, the drug addicted cop on NYPD Blue, Dawson's dad, Teen Wolf, Psycho, all these different journeys and side trips that I've had. I've often wished that I had more of a sensibility about, okay, I did think when I was back for Crisis, they end with the suit burnt and the insignia that I should have asked, and I may still be able to. I wouldn't do it now because they're dealing with so many things, trying to get back shooting in the age of COVID and keep everybody safe. But I would like to have that you know.
Yeah.
But the only reason I took the trench coat is because John wanted to wear it. I thought that's an awesome raincoat, trench coat, whatever. And yeah, but I never.
Oh, that is awesome. You could be you could have a flash suit hanging up right now, smelling a bit. It depends on which suit that you choose.
Oh, I do have a Jitters cup. I just thought of another thing. I do have a Jitters cup.
Oh, awesome.
The coffee shop, which I
Yeah.
just sort of slipped under my arm and took. I'm like, oh, there's a pile of Jitters cups. Okay, we're just gonna sneak out the door. But you know what has really been fantastic, and I have collected by going to Comic-Cons, are, I don't know if you can see, can you see Garrick on the wall back there? I was at a Comic-Con with the great Joe Stanton, and he drew that for me at the con, and I have pictures of him coming over and autographing it for me and giving it to me. So that's a Brett Breeding, great inker and comic book artist in his own right, drew this incredible of my Flash 1990 and gave it to me. I have that. And so I have things that people have have presented me with, you know, that are my collectibles. Also, I have 2 action figures and a pop. It's like, man, it took me 60 years, but I'm a pop.
And you've made it. You're a pop. That is awesome. And talking about Crisis, I've got to say, Crisis, that crossover for me has got to be the best crossover to date. I just think what they do and how they film it must be crazy to have all those shows together. I know that I've heard interviews with the actors from those shows saying it's non-stop. How was filming Crisis for you?
Well, I had a lot of feelings. You know, Sterling Gates, who was a co-writer on that, and Sterling Gates also wrote the Flash Time episode where we were diffusing the nuclear bomb in season 4. And Sterling was asking me what the experience was like. He was there to support us on set in case there were any needed rewrites. And I said, well, again, I'm so focused on, I have a job to do and doing it, that it hasn't really hit me yet. And Sterling said, I was sitting there writing these scenes, these crisis scenes, and crying, you know. And so I had a lot going on. Because I was bringing, you know, a part full circle 30 years later, 28 years, I guess it was, during Crisis. And having a really cool way to bring that character full circle. I loved the way it was written, Eric Wallace and Sterling, you know, that it wasn't sentimental. It wasn't overdone. It could have been get over yourself, you know, but it was like, I have a job to do. This is, you know, my world is gone. This is my sacrifice to make. I'm going to steal your speed. You pick up a couple of neat tricks when you've been a, you know, superhero long enough, you know, you learn some neat tricks, you know, so there was a sense of humor, a sense of duty, a sense of, I'm going to do this. I love that I got a bit angry with Carlos, you know, when he wouldn't open the breast. I said, do you want your friend to die? You know, and then turning to him and saying, I know you'll continue to make us proud. Keep riding the lightning, kid. And I threw in a wink so that it was light. The best review, which every now and then, and I can quote all the bad reviews, the worst reviews I've ever gotten, and there's some real stinkers, but this one was a confirmation of everything that I hope to communicate. It said, it was written and shot and acted and directed in such a way that it turned what could have been a harrowing moment into a triumphant one.
Definitely.
And that made my heart, you know, really
and it was such a beautiful scene. It was, and what a way to go out. I just think it's beautiful, and it brought a tear to my eye. And the only other time I had a tear in my eye was at the end of the pilot for the OG Flash with the sun. You know, just going back, you know, to the original, as I would call it, at that point where you sit down and say, you may not be the fastest, you know, for me, that I knew that the rest of that series was going to be amazing, because at that point, you know, you're looking at a true hero that is going to do great things. And it was just
May I
beautiful.
just tell
It
you
really
the way
was.
that interesting thing about the way that, and my hat's off to David Nutter, who really set the tone of the new show. Emmy award-winning director of
It
oh my
literally,
God, it was the biggest thing on TV.
Game of
It
Thrones.
was yes,
Yeah.
The Red Wedding. And the way they pulled a fast one on me, because I learned the scene as it was written. And David was so quiet, and he came up to me and he said, okay, I'll never forget, handed me a bottle of water. And he said, we've written some dialogue to honor you, or for whatever word he used, that you haven't seen. So don't come in on your cue. Wait. And don't come in until Grant says, whatever it was, I love you, whatever it was that broke the mountain. And so, well, now all my, talk about spidey sense, everything is glowing, and I'm so locked in to Grant, which is what you want to be as an actor. And I'm wondering, what is he going to say? What is he going to say? And out came, remember that time when you told me to change my name because you didn't want anyone to be wanted to associate me with you. Well, I'm glad I didn't change my name, you know?
Yeah.
I'm going back there. I'm proud of you, and I am proud to be your son. I totally lost it. I couldn't get the dialogue out for the rest of the scene. Gratefully, Andrew Kreisberg, Jeff Johns, David Nutter, in the other room, they said, John, you're in it. Do it again. Without a word. And then I was able to have the fullness of emotion and yet not get completely consumed by it. But isn't that interesting?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, it's there to get the reaction, isn't it? It's there to get that moment where you're not prepared for it. And yeah, I mean, David Nutter is just amazing. He really is. He's like,
I'll tell you another brilliant thing he did.
Yeah.
I was coming out of the house. The wife had been killed. We're doing the flashback. Barry's 10 years old. I come out of the house. They're dragging me away. I see Barry. I'm thinking, I don't want to make him more scared than he already is. David is thinking, crescendo, 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 you know. And so he kept saying, when you see him, it's like, I said, but David, I don't want to scare him. He said, scare him. I said, all right. So I go, Barry, you know, and I'm looking around, and the cops and the this and the swirling, and they actually use that line in a lot of the promos. So David knows.
Yeah.
When you have a good director, you have to put yourself in his hands, you know.
That is awesome. I mean, obviously Crisis was amazing, and there's a lot of rumors that always go around the internet, because obviously when the original Flash came out, there was no internet. Now there's internet, and there's lots of rumors, and apparently there's rumors that you might be going back to the DCverse. I don't know if you can say yes or no. Could that be a possibility in some way or form?
Well, I don't think I'm doing a spoiler here, because Eric Wallace, I read, said in an interview that Joan and Jay Garrick are on Earth Prime.
Right.
And that at some point we will be seeing Jay. We'll be seeing them again.
Awesome.
That more than that, I cannot say. I have talked to Eric, and we've talked about some things, and there's a big surprise coming, and more than that, I can't say.
Good.
But I want everybody to be there on February 23rd at 8:00 on the CW. I may or may not be there. I'm not saying I'm in the episode. I'm just saying the new season delayed starts on February 23rd, and I just so want to support that show for everyone.
Do you know what? We just cannot wait. With the year that everyone's had,
you know what I'm saying?
At the moment, we need a bit of relief. We need a bit of escape, you know, and these amazing shows. So before we wrap up this wonderful interview, conventions, you absolutely seem to love them. and thrive. What's the best thing about attending conventions for you?
The interaction, the fact that you walk into that convention hall, whether it's 100,000 people in Peru or Guayaquil, Ecuador, or Mexico City, or New York, or Paris, or London. I was supposed to be in London in this last month. I canceled. But you walk in and you're in this, what feels like a pretty pure environment, in that everybody's there for one reason. We're all there to wrap ourselves around our love of this pop cultural art form, so that people come up to you and they have so many personal associations that, as someone who's been with the franchise off and on over a 30-year period, a lot of people's emotion memory is hooked into, and I always try to calculate when somebody gets really emotional with me, and I've had people break down and cry in my arms. I don't say that, I say that with all due respect, and I take it as a sacred trust if somebody's willing to show you, to be that vulnerable with you, that they trust you that much as a result of your work. I try to figure out, okay, how old were they when they hooked into whatever project it was? And I imagine what they may have been going through. Sometimes they'll tell me, you know, and the fact that it's such pure heart-to-heart interaction. It might be people I get into an argument with on the street, but everybody checks their egos, everybody checks their politics, everybody checks their religion at the door. And we come in and we involve ourselves in the adventure of discovering who each other is. And definitely. My sister, who's a minister of music in a very progressive church in Decatur, Georgia, welcoming and affirming, very progressive. She described it, because we're both ministers' kids. She said, well, John, I was describing the experience. And she said, well, John, this in a way is your ministry. I don't know if I go that far, but I'd say what a beautiful way to look at it. And you know what you get out of conventions? You get out of them exactly what you put in. If you go in like, I'm here to make a buck, I'm really above this, I'm not comfortable with it, then that's exactly what you're going to get. But if you go in with an open heart, these people are bathing you, man, in affirmation. And if you open your heart to that, I have been incredibly moved on many times. I can't even say more than one, many times, that people are so kind and affirming with me.
Yeah, and this is why we need these conventions back, because people look forward to these. Have you got any virtual conventions planned at all coming up? Or
I did one with Mike Broder, who is the SuperCon king. I was on the Mike Broder tour a year or two back. I did Raleigh, SuperCon, and Minneapolis, and Louisville, and Virginia Beach. It's like I was doing. He said he was doing the John Wesley Shipp tour. All the cities that I had either Louisville, Kentucky. I graduated from high school. I was born in Norfolk, Virginia. My dad went to Richmond. We lived in Wake Forest. So every town was claiming me as a hometown boy comes home. So it was like, how many homes do you have? Yeah. And we did a virtual convention with Mike and Sandy, but it's the only one that I've done. I would be, no. Yeah, that was the same one that I did, with Teddy and Jessica. It was, it was fun. People have been talking about how do we get them back? My thing about the value of convention, it's a tactile experience. If you put me in a bubble, like say for photo ops, and they're standing beside me outside the bubble, I'm very hands-on. I get up from behind my table. I want to have the contact, and that may come from my dad, but I want to have that, I want to feel all that wonderful energy that's coming at me.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible to see. I mean, cons are happening at the moment, and they've got like a sheet of plastic between, the guest and the attendees, and it's not the same. I want to shake someone's hand thank them for what they've given me, and leave, feeling, happy that I've met one of my heroes. So fingers crossed, this COVID, goes away, sooner the better, and we can get these conventions back, and we can have you over in the UK as soon as possible. So
I will
can
be
meet.
there at the drop of a hat.
Because I've never got a chance to meet you, and I've got my DC comic ready for you to sign. The one with you on the front. I think it's the only one that they did, except for Christopher Reeve in Superman.
It was the
DC
second one
one.
that they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to get you to sign it for my collection. And quickly before we go, Christmas is just around the corner. How will you be celebrating Christmas?
Very quiet. It will be I have quit jobs before and gone home for Christmas. I will not be going sort of the home now wherever the family is. Everybody's ended up in Atlanta. My sister, my brother, his wife, and their kids. We go every year to Atlanta for Christmas. I will be staying in New York this year, because the more we follow directions of our best scientists and our healthcare experts, the sooner we'll be back together. And that's my goal, is to come back together.
And have you got any messages for your fans, your end message, on a message of hope, really, from the Flash himself?
I'll say this. I get these memory flashbacks from Facebook 1 year ago today. Okay. 1 year ago today, I was doing a 2-character play about Henry Fonda and Jimmy Stewart, workshopping it in New Orleans. I was in Minneapolis, all these pictures, with people at Q&As, cutting up, having a good time. One after the other, a year ago today, and I stop and I say, wow, if things can change that quickly, they can change back. So everybody follow direction, be safe, and hopefully 1 year from now, when we're all together, we will look back on the days when we had to stay separate for everybody's safety.
There you go, from the man himself, the Flash. And what a wonderful message. And yes, and I think we're going to appreciate things more. When we come out of this, we're going to appreciate family. We're going to appreciate life. And hopefully it'll be a kinder nation around the world, whichever country we are in. John, thank you so much for your time. You've been a great guest. And
thank you. Amazing questions. This has been a terrific interview. Sometimes, as I said, I feel like I'm automatic pilot because there are only so many answers. Before I start making things up. Bless you. This has been a wonderful, very, very intense, enjoyable time for me. So thank you.
Good. Thank you. And it's a tick off my bucket list. So I can, enjoy the rest of the week with a big smile on my face.